You're listening to the Jets Factor on SoundCloud.com and the Grandstand Sports Network.
Third down snap. Sanchez to the end zone over Arrington, and touchdown, New York, Santonio Holmes.
Now, here's your host, CJ DeSimone.
What's going on, Jets Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Jets Factor podcast here on SoundCloud.com and the Grandstand Sports Network. I'm your host, CJ the Painkiller DeSimone, and we're going to be talking about a couple of things, including reflecting on this past Sunday's Super Bowl. Shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles. Congratulations to them on their Super Bowl championship. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about some of the comings and goings in New York Jets land, including some interesting developments coming out of Washington in regards to Kirk Cousins. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Plus my own personal opinion on this past Sunday's Super Bowl and some other assorted garbage that pops into my head at this time. But first, a word from our sponsors.
The Jets Factor podcast on SoundCloud.com is sponsored by the following entities. By Big C's Barbershop. When you need an old school cut, Big C's is the place to go for all your grooming needs. Call 772 area code 663-4440 or search up Big C's Barbershop on Google Plus to book your appointment now. Big C's is the place to be. By thegruelingtruth.net, the Jets Factor podcast is now accessible on thegruelingtruth.net. For a wide array of sports coverage, thegruelingtruth.net is your place to go. GruelingTruth.net, where legends speak. By www.nyjetfans.com, your number one source for everything New York Jets, including yours truly's podcast. For a limited time, tees are on sale at nyjetfanshop.com for only $10. Get them while supplies last. Again, www.nyjetfans.com.
And, of course, don't forget to check out the Jets Factor podcast on the Grandstand Sports Network. You can follow them on Twitter at Grandstand_sports. And, of course, GrandstandSportsNetwork.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's reflect on this past Sunday's Super Bowl. First things first, I do want to apologize to everybody. I did try to get a show out yesterday. And technical difficulties, not only with my computer, but my microphone kept me from doing that. So I do apologize for not getting that show out yesterday. So we're now going on microphone number 4. So hopefully this one works. Anyhow, it took me a good 24 hours to really sink in that the Super Bowl championship was actually going to go to another city other than New England. And after having listened to an entire media week of ESPN commentators, CBS Sports commentators, WFAN commentators, a bunch of different people giving reason after reason after reason why the Philadelphia Eagles should not win the Super Bowl or have no shot at winning the Super Bowl because Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time, etc., etc. You know, one of the things that kind of made me shake my head about the entire tone of Media Week was not really much coming out of Philadelphia Eagles camp, a lot of noise coming out of Patriots camp. You know, and then there was the sudden benching of Malcolm Butler, something about that he was late getting to the Super Bowl by one day, and apparently part of Bill Belichick's rules is that if you're late, you don't play. Don't really know exactly what that was all about, but I'm sure that played into a factor. I mean, you're talking about Malcolm Butler, who played, 98% of your defensive snaps during the course of the year, and now all of a sudden it was a coaching decision that you weren't going to start him for the Super Bowl. Seems a little bit hanky, seems a little bit that Bill Belichick's arrogance coming out that, doesn't matter who you are, we don't need you if you're not going to follow the rules. So I guess so much for having a little bit of fun.
We have fun. You're damn right. I demand that we have fun.
Yeah, I guess, nobody's having fun up in New England right now after this past loss. So one thing, I will, full disclosure, I was pulling for the Eagles. Not just because I'm a Jets fan, but also because of my late father-in-law, John Shear, diehard Eagles fan. Poppy, I'm glad you got the ringside seat to see this. We miss you. Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Dad. We miss you very much. And they won this one for you, so enjoy it. So, also, very special thank you to a buddy of mine, Bill Garza, his wife, Kelly. They threw a Super Bowl party. I actually took a picture and put it on Twitter. Them doing their Patriots rally dance, which was kind of funny and just laughing hysterical. But, you know, at least he was actually pretty cool as far as a Patriots fan is concerned. He's not the homeristic type. So there weren't really that many homeristic types over at the Patriots Super Bowl party that I was at this past Sunday. So secretly on the inside, I wanted to stand up on the coffee table and start screaming the Eagles fight song. But I thought that would probably be a little bit inappropriate. But I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I told Bill, you know, in regards to him being sad about the Patriots not winning the Super Bowl. Look, there are 30 other teams that would have gladly traded places with you for the opportunity to even sniff the Super Bowl, to play the Super Bowl, to take part in Media Week and all of the comings and goings, okay, in regards to the Super Bowl. All right? That, of course, being the New York Jets. We haven't had a championship since '69. We sniffed the AFC title game 5 times, and all 5 times we came up empty. All right? So, as far as Patriot fans go, this is no disrespect to my friends or anything like that, but you know what? Pats fans, I have zero sympathy for you. Yesterday on the Michael K. show, I had this particular caller, some guy from the Bronx, I forgot his name or whatever, but he actually had the audacity to call into the show twice because Don LaGreca ripped him a new one for him being sad about the Patriots losing the Super Bowl. And you know what? I think Don was well within his right to rip this kid a new one. I'm sorry to say. Because you know what? Patriot fans are becoming a little bit spoiled. Okay? And I'm not talking about the old school ones. Because the old school ones know, like my buddy Bill, he's been a Patriot fan as long as I've been a Jet fan. All right? That eventually all good things come to an end. And his exact words were, he put his arms up and he said, you know what? We had a good run. And that was it. He didn't start with the garbage. Oh, the refs ripped us off. Oh, the NFL is against us. Oh, this happened. Oh, that happened. There were no excuses that were made for the New England Patriots losing the Super Bowl from one of my friends. Okay? But when I call up and I listen to some of the callers calling into New York radio station, Massachusetts radio station, national radio stations all over the country yesterday, nothing but excuses between, oh, well, Clemens' touchdown shouldn't have been ruled a catch, shouldn't have been ruled a touchdown because his foot was out of bounds. You know what? That one was a 50-50 call. I'm going to be honest with you because they said that he lost control of the ball. I really didn't see it. I looked at a couple of different angles of it. You know, NBC showed multiple angles of it. And I really didn't see the loss of possession that they were talking about. Okay, but then I also think about, you know, the Austin Seferian-Jenkins play that the Jets got shafted in MetLife. Okay? So what? You know, if Tony Corrente was there, what was he going to rule? He was going to rule that it was a catch and he fumbled it out of bounds and then, you know, rule it a touchback and award the Patriots the ball at the 25. So I'm sure if Tony Corrente was referee of the Super Bowl, I'm sure that would have probably happened. You know? And regardless of the officiating blunders or lack thereof, to be honest with you, you know, there were a couple over there. Well, you know, Brandon Cooks gets lit up. A lot of people are screaming helmet-to-helmet contact. There was some helmet-to-helmet contact, but not the initial. If you go and take a look at it in slow motion, it was such a bang-bang play that you actually see the Philadelphia Eagles defender hit him in the shoulder pad first and then skirt up into the helmet. It wasn't full-on helmet-to-helmet and like he was trying to blow him up. So, you know, again, I'm not going to sit here and justify any excuses. The Philadelphia Eagles were the better team for the Super Bowl, and they won. And you know why they won? Because in the second half, they did not take their foot off the gas pedal, which is what we've been screaming for other teams to do throughout the entire year, because that is the only way that you beat the New England Patriots. You cannot play conservative. And yeah, I'm looking at you, Zombie Bolts. I'm looking at you because you know what? You should have been taking notes during that Super Bowl. Okay? So next year, the rest of the NFL should know that in the second half, you should not be jaded and complacent and blinded by Patriot mystique. Okay? Tom Brady is in fact human. And the fact of the matter is that when it came down to it, Nick Foles made more plays than Tom Brady. Bottom line. Doug Peterson outcoached Bill Belichick. Bottom line. Spare me any excuse that you want to give me for the New England Patriots. There are none. And again, I have zero sympathy for you. None. And I'm actually glad that the Eagles won. Because they deserved it. They were the better team on Sunday. And believe it or not, both defenses took the day off because it ended up turning into a track meet. So, I think what did both teams combined for one punt. It was like the fewest in Super Bowl history. They combined for over 1,100 yards of total offense. Again, a Super Bowl record. Tom Brady threw for 505 yards and 3 touchdowns. Again, Super Bowl records. Okay, the Patriots had what? 3 receivers over 100 yards receiving. Rob Gronkowski, Danny Amendola, and Chris Hogan. Again, all Super Bowl records. Come on, guys. The bottom line is that we got treated to a very entertaining game this past Sunday. And you know what? In my opinion, and solely my opinion, the better team won. Because everybody through Media Week was already set to hand the trophy to Tom Brady to say, you've accomplished what no other quarterback has ever accomplished, 6 Super Bowl titles. And you know what? Doug Peterson and the Philadelphia Eagles put up the giant, mighty middle finger and said, not so fast. And you know what? Good for them. Good for them. All right? So, enough about the Super Bowl. Now, actually, just one real quick thing. What'd you guys think about the Justin Timberlake halftime show? I thought it was all right, believe it or not. I'm kind of a fan of JT. You know, I remember him from NSYNC. You know, he's got a few songs I found myself jamming to. So, you know what? I really did not think it was all bad. I thought the Prince tribute was actually very fitting. He did say that something like that was going to happen. Probably one of the better halftime shows that I've seen in a while. Okay, so, you know, props to them. The Super Bowl commercials were pretty good. The Han Solo trailer, oh my God, that little spot. 3 best trailers, without a doubt. The Han Solo movie trailer coming out this summer. Avengers: Infinity War, which leaked the cameo. I found an article about that there's a character that's going to be doing a cameo in Avengers: Infinity War that they might have leaked. Which was a spoiler. I didn't get to read the article, but I'm sure it's pretty cool. And Mission Impossible Fallout. You know, I tell you something, every time I think I'm getting sick and tired of the Mission Impossible franchise, you know, Tom Cruise and company with the IMF, man, they just find a way to just really just ratchet it up just one more last time. So Fallout actually looks pretty decent. And of course, you know, honorable mentions, Jurassic World. The sequel to that actually looks pretty good. Trailer that made me laugh hysterical, Dwayne Johnson's Skyscraper. Dude, if that's not a ripoff of Die Hard, I don't know what is. Okay, I tell you. Bruce Willis somewhere must be shaking his head. But anyhow, I digress. All right, so let's move on. Now that the Super Bowl is over, we could concentrate on the offseason. The official offseason calendar has started. One thing that I still has not seen yet I still have not seen the Jets cut Mo Wilkerson. I'm sure that will be coming. I'm sure that there's a deadline where they have to, or a drop-dead date where they have to get rid of him. So definitely keep your eyes open for that happening, because that is definitely happening. Now, the interesting development here is Kirk Cousins. Washington has put out a report that even though they just gave up everything they gave up in order to get Alex Smith, which just absolutely just made me do this, because just the thought of being able to get Kirk Cousins from Washington just continues to make me salivate. Reports out of Washington is now they're just going to pull an utter classless move, which would really be detrimental and would really just prove that Dan Snyder is just an idiot. Washington is considering slapping the franchise tag on Kirk Cousins. Okay? So the franchise tag Kirk Cousins would be what? Roughly in upwards of $40 million. And what? They gave Alex Smith an extension with a boatload of money guaranteed. So, let me say this. Do you really, really, really want more than 50% of your possible cap space going into the offseason tied up into two players? One of them who probably might not even see the field, that you're just going to sit there and slap a franchise tag on him just so that way you can get some sort of draft compensation so he's not an unrestricted free agent? I think that would really be foolish. Because if that was the case, that you really thought that Kirk Cousins was the future of your franchise, he bet on himself back-to-back years where you went and slapped him with a franchise tag because you didn't want to sign him to a long-term deal. What does he do? He continues to put up yardage despite a subpar offensive line and 3/4 of his offensive weapons being sidelined with injury. And he still manages to put up 4,000 plus yards. I don't know what more you need to see. But as I wrote in my article, the Jets need to go after Kirk Cousins hard. One thing that we all have to keep our eye out on is that Washington is really not that stupid to slap a franchise tag on him. Because if they are, then the Jets not only have to get a trade situation where you're going to have to give up draft compensation, but you're now also going to have to pay the man $32 plus million a year for however long you're going to sign him. Or whatever he's going to require. You know, guys, if Washington franchise tags him, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know if I would make that deal. Because I don't think that the draft compensation that you would give Washington plus have to dish out would be worth it. It's one thing if you're talking about Kirk Cousins, you get him in the building, you lock the door, and he doesn't leave until he signs a contract. You pay the man whatever he wants. But now if you have to go and give up draft compensation just to get him in the building and then you still have to slap a contract, that might be a little bit too rich for my blood. My opinion. If that's the case, then you go all in the draft. Because if Washington is going to slap that freaking franchise tag on him, you get Josh McCown in the building. You say, look, we're going to give you a 1-year sweetheart deal as a way to say thank you for last year. And you go and you start turning your attention toward the draft, whether it be Baker Mayfield or Lamar Jackson or Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold or whoever it is that you fall in love with on the board. Just stay away from Josh Allen. Because I don't want Christian Hackenberg 2.0 in the building. Now, that being said, there are also some reports, like the New York Post actually printed something this morning about Nick Foles, that the Jets should possibly make a phone call to the Eagles inquiring about Nick Foles. Is that a direction that you want to do? Because personally, after he just won a Super Bowl and was named the Super Bowl MVP, I don't think he's going to want to leave Philly. And Philly needs a backup quarterback once Carson Wentz comes over. Carson Wentz is going to be ready to go come training camp. Guaranteed. And I'm sure that Philly's going to want Nick Foles to stay around to back up Carson Wentz, knowing that if something happens to Wentz, that they have a capable backup that can step up and continue to run the machine. So, although Nick Foles is a nice idea, I don't see it happening. I just don't. The Jets would probably have to give up way too much to get him, although it would probably be cheaper to sign him. But at this point, when you have a projected cap space of over $100 million, I don't think that you need to go bargain basement shopping. Not that I'm saying that Nick Foles is bargain basement. I don't want anybody to get my words twisted. But I don't think Foles would be a viable option for the Jets right now, given Philadelphia's current situation. I could be wrong. Stranger things have happened. If somebody would have told me that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to trade Alex Smith to Washington, I would have told them they were nuts. I would have thought for sure Washington would have, probably see if they could get their hands on a Case Keenum or possibly get a Brian Hoyer, who may end up getting released from the Patriots if they draft another quarterback. There could be a plethora of different things that could happen. Somebody would have told me Alex Smith was getting traded to Washington. I would have told them they were smoking. So, and to give me whatever it was that they were smoking. But, the bottom line is right now, we now need to keep our eyes open for the waiver wire. Take a look at the comings and goings. Especially what's going on with our neighbors of the North, because you know what? Their coaching staff is being fleeced left and right. As you guys know, if you haven't already heard, if you live under a rock, Matt Patricia's already been introduced as the head coach of the Detroit Lions, and Josh McDaniels will be announced as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts at some point during the week, probably toward the end of the week they're shooting for. So, it's going to be very interesting to not only see how things are going to shake out in New England, but sometimes how things shake out in New England have a tendency to create a ripple effect throughout the NFL. So, not that Mike Maccagnan should be, writing his plans about what happens with our neighbors to the north, but definitely keep an eye on them, because there's going to be quite a few things that shake free, possibly Malcolm Butler, who has voiced his displeasure with being benched in the Super Bowl. So, and I believe he is going to be an unrestricted free agent, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being invited to Florham Park for a sit-down. So, nevertheless, again, just a review. If I'm Mike Maccagnan, you keep an eye on the situation, what's going on in Washington. If Washington does happen to franchise tag Kirk Cousins, it's going to be interesting to see what it is that they're going to require for compensation, and that's just for the rights to even talk to him, to get him in the building. So you have to think long and hard, believe it or not, if you're going to be willing to part with draft compensation to even get Kirk Cousins in the building. So, I don't know. Now, this might just be all smoke. This might just be Dan Snyder's way of saying, screw you. We know you're an unrestricted free agent, but we could slap a franchise tag on you before the start of the 2018 official calendar in March. It could very well be a possibility. So, it could be a smoke show. It could be one of those things where they're trying to pull rope-a-dope. Or Dan Snyder is really that stupid and really going to invest close to $60-70 million of his cap in two plays, which is going to make Washington a very unattractive destination because they're not going to have any money to pay anybody. So, there goes that. Now, one thing that I will say is I do put the onus on Mike Maccagnan that he's got to take care of his own players, which means Demario Davis, he's got to get a new contract. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, you work out a new contract with him. You want to keep these people intact. You want to keep the weapons intact. Jermaine Kearse, he's coming back next year. Robbie Anderson, you don't know what his legal situation is going to be. Guaranteed he is probably going to be suspended. So, again, you may have to go out and get another wide receiver. Some have toyed the notion of Allen Robinson who is coming off ACL surgery, coming to Florham Park to play for the New York Jets. That would be a very interesting scenario, especially with Quincy Enunwa coming off injured reserve as well. So, not that I wouldn't mind, but right now, believe it or not, I'm keeping my eye on that Washington situation. But again, I also still have my heart set on the draft. Now, there's something that I wanted to bring up, and I actually put this on Twitter. And I'd like everyone to give me their opinion on it. Tweet the show at CNC Jets Factor. You can also tweet me at JetsFan0523. One of the things that I'm curious about, and only because I'm getting a little bit greedy as far as the quarterback situation is concerned, because when I think long term, when you look at Kirk Cousins and you have a quarterback who's in their prime, who's thrown for 4,000 yards, does it without question, even with a subpar offensive line and the limited amount of weapons that are around him. Do you sign Kirk Cousins and still take another quarterback at 6? I had actually flirted with that idea. Much like New England has done over the past few years, where they go and they draft a quarterback and they keep him around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years because they get to study under Tom Brady. Much like some other backup quarterbacks, although it didn't really work with Curtis Painter. And there's another guy, I can't remember his name, in Indianapolis. Brock Osweiler, it didn't really work in Denver. So, there are different scenarios where if you have the right quarterback in, that you could draft another quarterback and have him sit and learn. I know that as a first-round pick, you want them to start right away, to contribute right away, but I was flirting with the notion with if the Jets, now again, the perfect scenario, if the Jets were able to sign Kirk Cousins with the number 6 pick, still draft a Baker Mayfield or Lamar Jackson and have them sit to learn the offense. Because should, God forbid, something happen to Kirk Cousins, then you have a quarterback who is learning behind him, who you can put in, and you don't have to start them right away, and they can really learn and grow the system. But, again, that also comes from coaching, and when Todd Bowles continues to change offensive coordinators like I change underwear, that remains to be seen. So the question is here, Jeremy Bates, who runs a similar system to John Morton, they're going to be running a West Coast offense. It's already figured out. I'm sure some of the verbiage is going to be the same. Some of it's going to be a little bit different. But again, it's yet another offensive system that the Jets are turning over. And, this continual change with the only constant being Todd Bowles and how Casey Rogers still has a job. I could do an entire show on why Casey Rogers should have been fired. But the Jets need to continue the continuity factor. And right now, it's anything but. The only continuity is that Todd Bowles still continues to be the head coach. And Casey Rogers still continues to be the defense, and the defense continues to be mediocre. That's about the only freaking continuity that the Jets have right now. But constantly on offense, it's like I know that Todd Bowles wants to have a running attack, but even in a passing league, you still need to be able to pass the ball competently, and you still need to run the ball competently. But you can't do either if your offensive line is complete and utter trash, which I've told people time and time and time again, that Mike Maccagnan has criminally neglected this freaking offensive line. But the problem is that when Mike Maccagnan talks, it just sounds because he never really gives any type of clear, definitive answers as to what exactly he's going to do to address the offensive line. So, you can't do stuff like this without having yourself a good offensive line. Just ask the Patriots. Okay? I hate to keep bringing them up, but you know what? They're such the model of what the rest of the NFL should follow. You have guys in there, they may not be sexy names, they may not be starters anyplace else, but they put guys in position to be successful. They put guys in specific positions to be successful. And I think that, the reason why I was calling out Todd Bowles at the beginning of this show, and hopefully that he was taking notes during the Super Bowl is you need to be able to have an offensive line that can create a pocket to protect your quarterback so they can deliver the ball. Otherwise, it does not matter what type of offensive scheme you want to run. Because if your quarterback is constantly under duress and he's constantly getting slapped around, like we saw Josh McCown get slapped around pretty much all freaking year, then what good is it? I went on this rant last year when they had re-signed Brian Winters, where I thought that this was a good move, and the Jets need to be able to build around Brian Winters, and it just seemed like that they really didn't heed the advice. So they put Wesley Johnson in, who was suitable as a backup. He's not a starter. They went out and signed Kelvin Beachum. Kelvin Beachum was serviceable at best. James Carpenter was a good pickup. Brandon Shell has been up and down, more down than up, to be honest with you. You have your Ben Aguilana and Brent Cavalli platoon, which sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then you have the great unknown, which is Dakota Dozier. Dakota Dozier, I don't understand why he's not a starter in this league, because every time he's come in, he's actually done some damage, and he's actually been a boost for that offensive line. But, again, you've got an offensive line made up of backups as opposed to starters. And it's time that Mike Maccagnan used this free agent money that he's got, this $100 million in cap space. You have to build this offensive line. It all starts with a good center. So look for Maccagnan to target some centers in this offseason, hopefully, because that offensive line needs to be rebuilt, and it doesn't matter who you put on the center back there. You don't rebuild that offensive line. You don't fix that offensive line. It doesn't matter. You could have Johnny Unitas on the center over there. They're going to get killed. Okay, I've been saying this time and time and time again. It's time for Maccagnan to do what he's got to do. No more games. It's time for you to fix the Jets. All right? So, that's that. Now, one other thing that I wanted to comment on, I don't know if any of you have seen The Last Jedi yet, but if you haven't, I do recommend you go see it. Totally blows up what you think of Star Wars. I'm not going to give any type of spoilers, but it just makes me laugh that The Last Jedi is probably the most talked about Star Wars movie ever made. But you know what? No one really talked about how Rogue One really connects the dots between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Considering that I'm sure all of you have probably seen Rogue One. If not, you need to go see it. I like it when they do the separate stories in regards to the Star Wars universe. I'm finding it very refreshing, okay? Because, believe it or not, Rogue One not having, Luke Skywalker in it, not having Han Solo in it, not having Princess Leia in it, even though she had a cameo toward the end, but just that particular story within the story. I'm hoping that when they release the Star Wars movies a little bit more down the line, as you're starting to see it, they first started it with Rogue One, Solo, a Han Solo, a Star Wars story. I can't talk. The Solo movie is coming out. There we go, in August. Or coming out sometime this summer. I like those type of standalone movies where it's its own separate story, where at the end of that story, you see how it fits in Star Wars canon. The Last Jedi basically takes Star Wars canon, puts a blockbuster in the middle of it, and totally blows it up. So I'm curious to see what Episode 9 is going to look like. But if you haven't gone to see it, go see it. Get back to me on what you guys thought of it. I know it's been out for like a really, really, really long time. It's been out for over a month. It's probably going on 2 months. All right. So if you haven't had the opportunity to go see it, I recommend you go see it. And that's that. That's my Star Wars banter for today. All right. So other than the blatantly obvious that we're kind of starting to come toward a little bit of a dead period here in the NFL world, as we're starting to see some coaching vacancies get filled in in the coming weeks, you'll start seeing some players released as everybody kind of tidies up their backyards, so to speak, or their greenhouses, so to speak, to get ready for the start of the 2018 NFL calendar. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see. But I am going to announce that I'm taking a couple weeks off. All right? So the Jets Factor podcast will not be airing for a couple weeks. So this is a little bit of a send-off for you guys. I'm going to take a much-needed break, and I need to focus my energies on a couple of things that are going on in my personal life. One is finding another job, which has been incredibly stressful. And two, just really reevaluating how I'm going to approach the NFL 2018 season and how the New York Jets offseason is going to actually play out. Yes, the Jet Factor podcast is coming back. I don't want anybody to think this is a farewell message, because it's not. So we definitely plan to be back. Just like I said, taking a little bit of an extended vacation. I never got to say thank you to all of the people who supported the show over the past years. Believe it or not, April is going to be 6 years. 6 years that JFP has been bringing you New York Jets news, opinions, the funny episodes, nonstop cussing, and all of that good stuff. Definitely looking forward to the anniversary show when I put it together, because that's definitely going to be fun, as always. But 2018, hopefully going to be a brighter outlook, a brighter future. But in order to ensure a brighter future, we need to fix things now. So, just like Mike McCagnon has to fix the Jets, I got to fix myself. So, and that's what I'm going to do. So again, I want to thank everyone who took the opportunity to download this podcast, who listens to the podcast. Again, thank you for your support. Without you guys, we are nothing. So, this is CJ the Painkiller DeSimone signing off, and let me leave you with a little bit of music out the door. If I can find it here. Okay, here we go.